As governor and lieutenant governor of our state. I am a Utahn by birth and currently live here as well for decades. I started in this as an author. I've been publishing for over 20 years, and a couple years ago, I wrote a letter warning about the book banning we were starting to see happening more and more in Utah. I invited a bunch of friends to sign it. Over 40 Utah children's authors signed that letter. What we have found out since is that many of us have been put on national do not buy lists, not because of the contents of our books, but because we signed the letter and oppose book banning. The crux of our message that was so dangerous that we were put on do not buy lists was this: attempts to ban books about underrepresented kids sends them the message, you shouldn't exist, your story doesn't matter, and we don't want our kids to empathize with you. This is a dangerous message. In Utah, suicide is the leading cause of death for 10 to 24-year-olds. More than ever, they need us to show them unequivocally, you matter, we love you, and we want you here, all of you. Since I've been speaking out about this, I found many adults have been confused by my personal participation. Because in my children's and young adult books, especially, I have not dealt with sex. I don't have sex scenes in my young adult books. And I've had people say, how can you be okay with the sexual content? In fact, we in Utah have had, we're the first state in the nation that has had legally books put on a list that says these are not allowed in schools and libraries. And most of these books had sexual content in them. How can you be okay with that? People ask me. So I want to talk briefly about why just the presence of sex and scenes about sex and talk about sex in books doesn't inherently make it bad. And I'm going to be blunt. I was 13 years old, the first time an adult man who I should have been able to trust put his hands on me and treated me like a sexual object. Books did not sexualize the child that I was. Some men in Utah did. Reading age-appropriate books about sexual assault at that age would have given me the information to name what he did and empowered me to tell adults I trusted, and instead I was confused and told no one. I am not alone. Here are some statistics that are hard to hear, but I think we need to be aware. In Utah, nearly 1 in 3 women experiences some sort of sexual violence in their life. 1 in 5 children are sexually abused before turning 18. Rape is the only violent crime for which Utah's rate is higher than the national average and has been for decades. Protecting teens from discussions about sex is not saving them from assaults. Books are not causing the assaults, but books can aid in healing survivors and even stopping perpetrators. Here's one powerful example of this. A good friend of mine is a high school English teacher here in Utah, and she was reading the book Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson with her class. It's a book that's frequently on banned lists. It is about a girl who, as a freshman, is raped at a high school party. It is not graphic. It is told in a compassionate way, but truthful way. In one of the response papers that she received from one of these high school boys, he wrote this, quote, I'm stuck. In Speak, the girl gets raped, but she was drunk. Before I read this book, I would have said that if a girl is drinking and gets raped, it's all her fault. But now I am not sure. I mean, she was stupid for drinking, but he shouldn't have done that no matter what. How did the experience of reading that book change that boy? From seeing through the point of view of a girl, and especially a girl in that situation, will forever change how he interacts with girls if he sees another guy do something and standing up for that and stopping that. It changed him. It's going to change everybody he interacts with for the rest of his life. The ripple effect of a single book can be massive. In cultures where even discussion of sex is taboo, predators flourish. I want to repeat that. In cultures where even discussion of sex is taboo, predators flourish. Sexual activity doesn't go down, but predators have more leeway and more freedom because there's not enough education and safeguards in place. The existence of sex in book does not make it pornography, and by diluting the meaning of that word, we make it more difficult to protect kids. And it's really ridiculous at a time when most teens have access in their pocket to actual pornography 24/7. To ban books makes absolutely no sense. So I'm a mother of four and I'm doing the best I can for my kids. But I should not be able to tell other parents what's right for their kids, and they should not have the right to ban books that might be right or even life-saving for mine. And no book can be right for everyone. No teacher, no curriculum, no class, no ideas can be right for everyone. But we have to allow critical thinking. We don't need to fear different points of view. We're in danger of micromanaging ourselves right out of the gorgeous humanity of our state. For many kids and teens in Utah, the library is the only place they have access to books. So please let librarians and teachers do their jobs, and please stop harassing them for doing their jobs, for pity's sake. I I just think books, what they do is they allow empathy, and empathy brings compassion, and compassion brings love. And that's what we all want. That's our end goal that we all want. So please let kids read books. A kid validated is a life valued, and a kid informed is a life saved. Thank you. And Brian and Rebekah for governor.
Yes, Shannon Hale.
Shannon, thank you so much. I've heard you speak a number of times and have never failed to be moved. And what you said specifically about, the cultures where even discussion of sex is taboo, predators flourish. I think I first heard you say that at that read-in at the state capitol, and I've heard so many other people repeat that particularly seems to get into people's heads, right? It's so common sense, and it's for any one of us that really want to protect kids, we have to give access to books, right? And thank you so much for being here and for sharing your personal experience and perspective on that. We're next going to invite to speak Amanda Jones. Now, Amanda is a 24-year teacher librarian and is also a grassroots organizer in Louisiana who's really on the front lines of fighting against censorship in libraries. I'll also say Amanda's a personal library hero of mine, and I have her book sitting like right off camera here. That it's like as soon as we're done, I'm diving back into the book. But she is the 2021 National Librarian of the Year, as honored by School Library Journal, as well as a 2021 Library Journal Mover and Shaker, and 2020 Louisiana School Librarian of the Year. So she's been doing it for a number of years and getting recognition for the incredible work that she's been doing as a librarian and as an advocate. She's been recognized with numerous intellectual freedom awards, and she is a founding member of the Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship. And as I just mentioned, is author of the book that just came out, That Librarian, The Fight Against Book Banning in America. That's when I'm not doing work, when I'm not eating, when I'm not sleeping, I'm reading that book right now. So Amanda, thank you so much for being here. Let's give Amanda a nice round.
Thank you for having me. Normally when I speak, I prepare something, and I thought I'm just going to go with my heart for this one. Do what my friend Molly says and go with your heart. And I'm just honored to be able to speak to you. I've been a librarian a long time, educator for a long time. And for the past few years, I have been really disheartened by what I've been seeing across the United States. And I know that what's happening in Louisiana has been happening in Utah and all 50 states. I will say I was quite taken aback though when I read a few weeks ago that Utah had banned 13 books statewide. I thought I had read it all, and just how these books are being banned, that 3 school districts can, have objections to. 3 of the 40 school districts across Utah can have objections to books, and then suddenly they're banned statewide. And I was just in shock. I'm still in shock weeks later, hearing about that. I was very fortunate. I went to Utah for the very first time at the American Association of School Librarians Conference in 2021. And the first thing I said to my friends were, "This is so clean." It's so clean here. The air quality, everything is better here. And I love your state. And so I'm so sad for it to see, these book banning laws. And I've been a huge fan of the Let Utah Read Coalition. I might have stolen some of y'all's ideas for the Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship. Um, but the thing I really like about Rebekah is that on her website, she says she wants to bridge divides. And I think that's something right now, we're seeing a lot of hate. And I know I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. And I wasn't raised as a hateful person. I was raised a lot like Rebekah in a conservative household. Um, and like Shannon said, books build empathy. And I think about my life had I not read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Um, I think about what kind of person I would be if I hadn't read The Color Purple, or The Bluest Eye, or The Joy Luck Club. I think about these things, and books shape lives. And not only do books shape lives, but librarians shape lives. And I know Rebekah's a librarian, and I am too. And we shape lives, and we try to be there for the kids. And I imagine what kind of power Rebekah would have to be a state leader, And I read somewhere recently, or actually, I think author Phil Builder told me that of a Human Rights Coalition study that 9 out of 10, or so many LGBTQI plus kids in our schools feel unsafe, but that 9 out of 10 feel safest in the library. And I think about what we're doing right now, what we're seeing, and I think Rebekah can help build that empathy and that trust and that compassion, and help bridge those divides. She's calm, she's rational. She's done the work. She knows what collection development policies are and challenge policies are, and she knows what libraries can do, and she knows the kids who need to be protected, and she's pro public education and pro library. And I think, this is what we need. I'm a little jealous because I really would like Rebekah to come to Louisiana to run. Come run to Louisiana, because I would vote for you in a heartbeat. And so I'm a little jealous of Utah right now. But I hope that we can raise some money, and Rebekah can help bring common sense to Utah. We need a world where librarians are in charge. Librarians. I didn't realize when I was little, but librarians were kind of badass. So Utah needs a little badass leader with some compassion and some empathy, and that will help Utah grow and be the Utah, that you all know it can be, and get rid of this hate. So thank you again for allowing me to speak tonight. It was an honor. Can't believe I just spoke after Shannon Hale. But help Utah, everyone, and let's raise money and vote for Rebekah and Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Amanda. And I mean, there's so much that I want to and could say in praise of you. And I want to just note that, don't steal Rebekah to Louisiana, please, first of all. Second of all, Louisiana doesn't need Rebekah, because Louisiana has you and an incredible team of people who are fighting book banning. And one of the things I'm personally hoping that everyone takes from the call tonight is not only that Rebekah is amazing, which she is, but that any of us, can get engaged in politics at a level that I was about to say that is comfortable for us, but comfort's not the right thing, because it's uncomfortable for all of us, especially at first. But there's a place for us, and people love librarians, trust librarians. You pointed out the safety that students feel in the library. They grow up with that, and there's such a high level of trust and regard for us. I'm hoping that more librarians and authors and readers and people who share our value system will take that step. And maybe you don't start with lieutenant governor. That's an interesting place to start one's political career. But city council, school board, town council, and on from there. So I hope that everyone is inspired by Rebekah's example to run for something as well. So um, well, I'm really pleased now to introduce our next speaker, author Ellen Hopkins. And Ellen is many things. Ellen's a poet. Ellen's a freelance writer. She's the award-winning author of 20 nonfiction titles, 3 novels for adults, 13 13 New York Times best-selling novels in verse. And she's published just hundreds of articles on everything from aviation to child abuse to wine growing. She's a regular speaker at schools and book festivals and writers' conferences across the country and across the world. 13 of her titles, I mentioned there's 13 New York Times best-selling books. This number 13 is showing up again here. 13 of her titles have been banned across Utah for a total of 33 times across our many school districts. And her books, Tilt and Fallout, are unfortunately two of the 13 books that were recently banned statewide. So Ellen's got some stake in what is happening in Utah, and I'm just really thankful that she's able to spend some time chatting with us here tonight. So let's warm up the virtual room for Ellen. Take it away.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here, and I hope my internet works because we've been having kind of weird issues. So if I'm a little glitchy, just bear with me, please. So actually I have 14 YA titles, and I think they've all been banned somewhere. And I have a 15th just out now that's probably destined to be banned day after tomorrow because it just came out 2 days ago. But so as one of the most banned authors in the US, I've got a few things to say. If you don't know anything about me, see my t-shirt here, this is Crank. My first novel, Crank, published 20 years ago in October. Can't believe it's been 20 years. It's just been such a ride. And the book has been challenged in the past, but not in the same way it's being challenged now, because now this is a whole political movement, which is not the same thing as a parent coming in, finding the book with their child and saying, can we talk about like why you want to read the book? Now, that's my German Shepherd down there asking for cookies. Now it's about my name is on a book cover. And so there are people that have decided that I am the queen of pornography or whatever. And I am like so far away from that. It just kind of fascinates me that they can put me in that place. So Crank is a New York Times bestseller, but it's a lot more than that to me. I got into writing for teens because the story behind Crank is the very real story of my daughter's descent into addiction. I chose to write it as a book for teens because I wanted them to understand how quickly one bad choice, and for her it was one bad choice, that kind of destroyed her dreams for almost 25 years. She's doing well now, but it took 25 years for her to come around. And that was because of a choice she made when she was 17 years old. And I wanted my readers to understand that one bad choice can devolve your world, take away your dreams. It stole her dreams for those 25 years. She was an A+ kid. She was headed for a full ride at the Art Institute of Seattle. She wanted to do computer animation. And that dream vanished because she met the wrong guy who turned her on to drugs, and her life changed forever. My husband and I adopted her first baby, and then later raised 3 more of her children. The last, who's 15, is still with us. Just started his sophomore year in high school, and adolescence is so much fun. But I have raised 3 generations of kids through adolescence and beyond, and I know very well the problems that young people face every day. I chose to write Crank honestly because kids bullshit meters are like, they're like off the charts. And if I hadn't written it honestly, they would have said, I don't want to read this book. I don't need to read this book because I know you're lying to me. I do not lie to kids in my books. I do not lie to my readers in my books. And I guess that bothers some people. Like a lot, it's not a lot of people. It's the small handful of people that have been able to wrest control. I mean, in Utah, they've wrested control of the entire, of all the school districts in the state. And that to me is just like, how is that even possible in this country? So my goal has always been to help young people make those better choices. And yet now my books are unavailable in many libraries, both school and public libraries. It's not just school libraries, by the way. It is now public libraries also under attack. And Crank is regularly among the top 10. So over the years, I've filled it literally tens of thousands of messages, emails, etc. Regarding Crank, I've heard from parents thanking me for opening lines of communication. I've heard from kids thanking me for understanding people in their own lives who live this lifestyle. And from readers like these. I'm going to read you a couple of actual messages from readers. I'm honored to get this opportunity to tell you that Crank saved my life, opened my eyes to the world I was exposing myself to and rapidly getting drowned in. And then 2 years later, it did the very same for my little brother, who found it in my moving boxes and read it thinking it was a teen book about kids doing drugs. He was doing meth the night he read it with his at the time girlfriend. They quit the very next day. Thank you, Ellen. You've touched our lives forever, and I'll always be more thankful than you'll ever know for your books. And this one. I want to say thank you for your books. I was about 17 when Crank came out, and it helped me out by giving me voice to tell someone what happened to me. Normally, I didn't choose to read these kinds of books because it would bring back too many memories, ones that I've tried to repress. My mother was kind of like Christina in your book, Crank. Some of my earliest memories are of me getting beat or raped so she could get her next fix. By the time I was 5, the only thing I knew was abuse. When I got put into foster care, I was kind of like Maya Angelou. I didn't speak. I couldn't find my voice. As I got older, I got better, but I only spoke when absolutely necessary. I don't know why I picked up your book, but it seemed to be the key to my voice. I found a good friend to talk to, this gay guy named Joel. He was all I had. He had and still has trouble shutting me up. The very morning I finished Crank, I got up, got dressed, went to his house, and for some reason told him everything. It made me feel so good to finally have a voice. You gave it to me. You were like that lady that helped Maya get her voice, but for me. You help more people than you hurt with your books. People want to be connected with someone else. It's the human condition. I never felt like I was a part of everyone else until I started reading your books. Please stay strong and keep looking out for us, the kids without a voice. So this has been my goal, is to give kids a voice, to allow them to know that someone is listening to them, has heard them, cares about them enough to want to expose what's going on in their own lives. And it's so important. You know, Shannon was talking about the sexual abuse part of it, and this is the addiction part of it. But our books, that's what we're doing. We're opening up lines of communication for kids that don't have those. Maybe they don't have parents that they can talk to. Maybe they don't have friends they can talk to, but they have to be able to talk to someone. And if we can give them a voice and encourage them to speak up, that's my goal. That means everything to me. And I would love it if the people that are banning the books would just listen to the kids instead of listening to the hype. This current book banning hysteria is part of a movement to cripple public school education. Please vote for candidates like Rebekah, who embrace teachers, librarians, public schools, and the right to read. Our kids deserve to find the books they need, and that means open access to libraries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. You know, I see a theme here emerging with the authors who talking about what they're writing is coming from personal experience, and also, of course, from their heart. And it's wanting to make things better. And Ellen, you mentioned wanting to help kids make better choices, and that the only way to do that is to write honestly, as you pointed out. There's a BS meter there. That it's just so important to talk frankly and honestly to kids, and what you're writing about and your own experience as a family reflects the reality of so many families across America, and why writing about that and reflecting that truth is a threat to others is really beyond my understanding. But I want to say thank you for giving voice to this, and for helping and encouraging kids to find their own voices. And lastly, you know, the idea, our hope is that people who want to ban books will read them. And what we see over and over and over again across the country is that when committees of parents and teachers and librarians get together to read a challenged book, when they read them, they keep them, like 9 times out of 10. And Brian King is on this call running for governor. And last year, Representative King put forth a bill that it only did a couple things, but one of them was, it said before you can pull a book off a shelf, you actually have to read it. And that bill didn't get a hearing. Like something that simple. And well, why don't they want the books to be read? Because then they're going to be kept. So okay, that's more than I wanted to say. But Ellen, you moved me, so just wanted to add that. I now have the pleasure and the honor to introduce Calvin Crosby, another Utah native. Calvin is the executive director of Brain Food Books, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that puts new books into the hands of people who don't otherwise have easy and regular access to books. If you live in Utah, you know he's also the co-owner of one of the great independent bookstores in the country, the King's English Bookshop, that we're all thankful for and spend a lot of time and money at. But Calvin's commitment to building equity around books and reading in communities that don't have access to libraries or bookstores or other consistent access has been a lifelong mission for him. And as a member of the Cherokee Nation, he believes in land back, one independent bookstore at a time. So, Calvin, thanks for being here with us this evening. Take it away.
Thank you. I'm going to start with, I was that underrepresented kid growing up in Utah, below the poverty level, being Cherokee. And I'm not exaggerating when I say learning to read and having access to books of my own choosing not only saved my life, but showed me a way out of the systemic poverty that my family has generations of experience with. It offered me a life rich with experience that I could not imagine until I lived it. Reading for choice is responsible for who I am and where I am today. I'll have 31 years in as a bookseller this November. In that time, this is going to sound really braggy, so bear with me, there's a point. In that time, I've had tea alone with Maya Angelou. I have gossiped with Toni Morrison and Salman Rushdie. I've spent hours with David Sedaris signing books and him telling joke after joke, none of them appropriate to share here, of course. I've traded recipes with Yoda Modelingi and Nigella Lawson. I count among my friends Isabel Allende, Shannon Hale, who's on the call, Minjin Lee, and Martin Chris Smith, among many others. I've had my book recommendations used in national ad campaigns for many books, as well as being a judge for the 2022 National Book Award in Fiction. In the last 2 years, the partnership with Brain Food Books and the King's English Bookshop has offered 27,000 books into our underserved and at-risk neighbors here in Utah. 27,000 books individuals choose for themselves based on their own interest, reading, and comfort level. I tell you all this not to brag, but to show you the power of reading for choice, fun, and pleasure, and how it inspired me and shaped me as a person. The path from dumpster diving for dinner on a regular basis to eating dinner at the Getty's Mansion in San Francisco could not have been imagined as I looked up my porch in Magna, contemplating what the future might hold for me, as my parents could only struggle to survive at best. My parents could afford very little, but they offered me the luxury of choice when it came to reading. In libraries and bookshops, I was no longer marginalized or made to feel less than. My opinion mattered more than my skin tone. I could share ideas and I could be heard. In my lifetime, I've had nothing but choice in what I read. In turn, I've been able to help all kinds of people connect with the perfect book for themselves and for others, no matter their age, skin color, background, or beliefs. I cannot begin to count the thousands and thousands of books I have put into others' hands. I take offering a book serious each and every time I do it, knowing that every book I recommend has the potential to make a difference in someone's life, whether it's for a few hours, a week, a year, or a lifetime. It is important to reinforce how choice, access, and equity are key to offering hope, change, and growth for everyone. Libraries, schools, and bookshops offer choice, books with shared experiences with wildly imagined adventure, new perspectives, and information. Books, no matter the genre, are a place to see yourself or to see others. Reading can leave an indelible mark, shaping a person's thoughts, emotions, and future. The joy of reading should be a privilege we all share regardless of social economics. The idea of limiting choice, banning books, limiting access to books for anyone, especially the underserved communities, means diminishing possibilities and their chance to be seen or to know that they can dream beyond their current situation. This is why book access and choice in schools, libraries, and community centers are crucial. We must bridge the gap, ensuring everyone can explore the joys of reading for pleasure. Bans threaten access to diverse ideas and stories. It's important more important that all of us stand against censorship and advocate for the freedom to read. Having a librarian in our state government is a gift not only to ourselves and to our children, but likely to their children. Please join me in supporting Brian King and Rebekah. Like, I just can't wait to have them in office. Thank you.
Thanks. So thanks so much, Calvin. The contrast that you paint from dumpster diving to hanging with Maya Angelou, that's a journey. And I'm thinking, are you going to write your life story? I want to buy that book. Like, that is an incredible story. And at the same time as your story is, of like all of our stories are unique and incredible, your story about being a child and getting to get a book in your hand and having that impact you and lead you to dream and imagine a future for yourself, and that the expansiveness, like, that is also a story that's happening every day. It's happening somewhere, probably many somewheres across the country right now, this very moment as we're talking. And so I thank you for sharing your story, and also for the work that you're doing through Brain Food Books. I mean, it's, you know, you have this amazing bookstore, which obviously with books and literature out into the community and helps us all imagine and dream and connect and understand and empathize. That would be enough if that was your life's legacy. What you're doing with Brain Food Books is so incredible, and I just want to thank you for that commitment. Again, as you know, I'm a librarian, obviously someone who's had his life impacted by books. So thank you. Okay, I have to breathe. Alana K. Arnold is our next speaker. Now, this name I'm sure is familiar to many of you, if not all of you. Alana is the author of critically acclaimed and award-winning young adult novels, children's books, Prince honor winner, Damsel won the Prince, or was an honor winner, National Book Award finalist for What Girls Are Made Of, and a global read aloud selection for A Boy Called Bad and its sequels. So several of Alana's books are Junior Library Guild selections, and they have appeared on many best book lists, including the Amelia Bloomer Project, which is a catalog of feminist titles for young readers. Alana, in addition to writing, also teaches at Hamline University's MFA in Writing for Children and Young Adults program, and lives in Southern Cal with her family and a menagerie of pets.
One of whom you may have been seeing.
Okay. So the last thing I'll say before passing the mic here is that four of Alana's books, including What Girls Were Made Of, have been banned, and What Girls Are Made Of has been unfortunately banned statewide. I don't think we've heard the last of these book bannings, so stay tuned. We're not taking this lying down, but Alana, take it away. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. All right. Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I am Alana K. Arnold. As a best-selling and award-winning writer of books for and about children and teens, I found my work on an increasing number of banned and challenged lists, including Utah's HB 29. HB 29 is a criminal statute. It criminalizes providing a 17-year-old access to my book. The idea that I and other authors on the list are considered criminal pornographers by Utah law is ridiculous and should be chilling to anyone who loves our country and our Constitution. My novel, What Girls Are Made Of, and the 12 other books on this list are now being removed from the Utah high schools, all of them. They were collected for these libraries by trained library professionals, and they will now be destroyed. The intended audience of my book are of the age when they are experiencing difficult things, and this statute is taking away the very art that could help them process it. I have been told many times that my young adult novels are inappropriate for teens. Are they? I guess that depends on what you mean by inappropriate. Do you mean stuff that shouldn't happen to women, young girls, and kids of all genders? Then yes. My National Book Award finalist, What Girls Are Made Of, examined embodied female shame and the question of unconditional love, the ways girls are asked to shrink and twist into forms others desire for them. Damsel, a Prince Honor winner, explores rape culture, gaslighting, the male gaze, misogyny, and patriarchy in a world of damsels, dragons, princes, gowns, and glass eyes. If, on the other hand, by inappropriate, you mean stuff that doesn't happen to girls and women, then the answer, unfortunately, is no. None of the stuff in these novels is make-believe. And it's precisely because the books reflect lived experience of myself and others that they scare and discomfort. Ask almost any young woman anywhere, and she will have a story, if you're willing to hear it. Not long ago, waiting for an elevator with a group of women, some I knew, some who just happened to be going to the next floor, we got onto the topic of sexual assault. Between the time I pressed the button to call the elevator and the time the doors opened, each of us has shared a casual memory of an incident in an office, in a classroom, or on the subway. Then in the next breath, one of the other women said to another, "What should we get for lunch today?" It's that casual. It's that everyday. So common that our shared experiences didn't even warrant a moment of, "I'm so sorry someone did that to you. It happened to me too." So let me take this moment to say to Shannon Hale, I am so sorry that that man assaulted you. Something didn't just happen to you. A person did something to you. I get that we don't want to believe that terrible things might happen to our children. I have children. I want to protect them. But I can't protect my kids by locking them in a tower or locking books in a tower or by placing a dragon outside their door. I can't protect all the kids. I couldn't even protect myself. But I'm a writer. What I can do is give words to experience. I can give kids and teens language to recognize what is happening, may happen, has already happened. Teens don't need us to protect them from the truths of their world. They need us to arm them with our belief in their experiences, with our own stories too. This current panic around pornography in books for kids, along with the anti-CRT scare and the anti-trans moral panic, is today's iteration of the moral panics we've cycled through in the past. The satanic panic, stranger danger, the Red Scare, even the Salem witch trials are earlier versions of the same basic movement. What do all these moral panics have in common? They identify a scapegoat from a marginalized community, women, people of color, queer people, and then leverage the fears of the majority to label these people as dangerous and other. From a distance, moral panics seem almost silly. How could people really have believed that witches were taking over their town, or that strangers were mining neighborhood sandboxes with AIDS-infected needles, or that Dungeons and Dragons was a satanic cult recruitment tool? But we don't have time to wait for the smoke to clear, because in the meanwhile, real people, authors, teachers, librarians, and children and teens themselves are the movement's casualties. Rebekah Cummings said, "I'm not offended by fiction that reflects the hard things of life, but I am offended that kids go to bed hungry every night. We know the challenges that our communities are facing, and we know that books are not the real problem. We see what our unsheltered populations go through. We see the challenges our students face trying to get homework help. We see the challenges LGBTQ kids are facing, trying to belong, to find belonging and acceptance." Rebekah understands the true threats to our children, and they aren't in the pages of a library book. It's our job to help elect her. So give what you can, do what you can, and then vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alana. Yeah, it's like the light got very noir there, just as we were talking about some things. When you said stuff that shouldn't happen is what is being categorized and demonized as inappropriate. This it's insane. Restricting access to books, as you point out, it doesn't protect anybody. It's the language in those books and the stories in those books that you've written that describe reality so that kids and others can understand it. That is what protects them. That is what protects them. I also want to just note and appreciate you brought in, I think for the first time tonight, the moral panic that is focusing now particularly on anti-trans and had started by focusing on CRT. And just to point out the ridiculousness and the lack of seriousness of the other side about these moral panics. Chris Rufo, who kind of kicked off the fight against CRT, I have to air quote CRT, critical race theory, literally at some point said, well, we're going to now start focusing on anti-LGBTQ because we're finding that that's more politically explosive. This was all about, as you talked about, stoking fear, trying to scapegoat, and it's A/B testing, like what marketers do. Did this headline get more clicks or that headline get more clicks? And the people could be more frightened by LGBTQ moral panic than CRT. And of course, they're refining that into, focusing on our trans brothers and sisters and neighbors. So real people are being harmed by this, as you pointed out. And I'll just say one last thing, which is that yes, real people are being harmed, just as real people are being helped, Alana, by your words and your books. So thank you. And thank you for your reminder to vote as well. So um, I next want to introduce Theodora Soter. I'll assume she's on the call. If not, we'll roll with it.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Great. Okay. So Theodora, nice to see you. Is a writer, is a bookseller, is a library student, and a champion of the right to read, as well as a general bibliophile. Thea's been featured speaker at Let Utah Read at our read-in at the state capitol, along with Shannon Hale and some other wonderful authors. And she graduated last spring with her undergraduate degree, yay, in English from the University of Utah, and is honored to be speaking here tonight at Readers for Rebekah and Thea. We're honored to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I feel like the lineup was a little bit skewed because I don't know how I'm supposed to follow everything that just happened, but I will try my best. I do want to say that Crank was the first book that I ever read where I had a conscious thought while reading it, like, oh, I don't know if my mom would love that I was reading this right now, but I can now, many years later, say that it truly changed and transformed my life for the better. So Ellen, it's an honor to be on the same Zoom call as you. Thank you for your words and your books. They mean more to me than you know. Well, okay. The imposter syndrome is really coming in right now. But I am so happy to be talking to you all today. I moved out of Salt Lake earlier this summer and haven't been able to help with this campaign nearly as much as I would have liked to. So being here with many familiar faces or Zoom boxes feels like a unique gift. I'm going to tell you two quick stories tonight. One about reading, the other about Rebekah, both of which have been incredibly pivotal parts of my own life, and I'm sure many of yours as well. So I'll get into it. Once upon a time, there was a little girl with dark hair and brown eyes. She was a sister until one day she wasn't. And as she navigated the difficult journey that is death, her book seemed to be her only constant source of comfort. It was in her time reading that she found her sense of right and wrong, her curiosities and desires, and perhaps most notably, her voice. As she got older, the significance of the pages that she flipped through and the solace that they brought only intensified. One day, the girl made a promise to herself and the world around her. She would always work to share stories. She thought that the way to do it was to write it all down. She interviewed and edited and published until one day when she happened to interview Rebekah Cummings, which brings me to my next story. Rebekah taught that girl about the importance of libraries to storytelling. She taught her that access to information, whether that be literature or archives, is the cornerstone of a functioning, or should I say flourishing, society, and that the librarian's role is pivotal to a community's success, whether that community be academic, public, or the entire state of Utah. Rebekah listened to the girls' draft after draft of library science application essays and was always there with a red pen and an encouraging smile. Now that girl, much to her own mother and Calvin Crosby's dismay, is across the country getting her graduate degree in library sciences and hopes to do the same transformative work as Rebekah one day. For those of you who haven't guessed, I am that girl, and those are my stories. And while I have technically only been a master's student in library science for like a total of 4 days now, I have already learned a lot about the kind of person this profession attracts. It's someone that's ethical, equitable, and for lack of a better adjective that starts with an E, excellent. All three are qualities that I know are central to Rebekah Cummings as an individual. I truly cannot imagine a more caring, genuine, or capable lieutenant governor for the state I call home, which is why I hope you all vote for Brian King and Rebekah Cummings in this upcoming election. Thank you.
I miss you, Thea.
Thanks, Thea. Thanks, Thea. When you say imposter syndrome, I know what you mean, and I wonder. I'd be willing to bet everyone on this call is feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome, because there's just so much amazingness on this call and in the chat as well. Thank you for sharing your story, and I love how, you know, your early experience with books led you to make a promise to yourself to share stories, and the fact that you are making a decision to walk the path of becoming a librarian. I feel like it validates our whole profession that we've somehow attracted someone of your caliber and quality as a person, as a writer, you know, someone who has worked, you know, in and among books and with Calvin, that you've made the decision to become a librarian. It just feels very validating. So thank you, and early welcome to the profession, and looking forward to just seeing your career as it unfolds. Okay. I think this is our final speaker before we turn it over to Rebekah. Sadiqa Johnson. Sadiqa Johnson is here with us. She is a New York Times bestselling author of 5 novels, including a Reese's Book Club pick, The House of Eve. And yes, that is Reese, as in Reese Witherspoon. Her accolades include the NAACP Image Award nominee, a 2022 Hurston Wright Foundation Legacy finalist, the Black Caucus of the American Library Association Literary Honoree, Library of Virginia's Literary People's Choice Award, and the Phyllis Wheatley Book Award. Sadiqa is originally from Philadelphia. I used to live right outside of Philly on the Jersey side. She currently lives near Richmond, Virginia with her husband and 3 teens. And for more, you can visit her website at www.sadiqa.net and on Instagram at Sadiqa Says. Sadiqa, welcome. Take it away. Sadiqa,
I did not. There I am. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Rebekah, thank you so much for the invitation. And Peter, you said you were on the Jersey side. So I hope I can say, go Eagles, go Birds. Philadelphia Eagles fan? Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe
Giants.
not. Giants. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Well, good evening, everyone. And again, Rebekah, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me. Like Rebekah, I grew up finding solace in books. I'm the oldest of 4 children, and I grew up as a latchkey kid, which means I had a lot of free time on my hands. Luckily for me, on my way home from school, I had to pass the library. And so essentially, the library was my after-school babysitter. And the books that I read helped me in the hours to just sort of forget some of the turmoil that was going on for me at home between my parents. On summer breaks, I was the girl who went to the library every Monday. I got dressed up. It was a major event for me. I kept my library card in a very special purse. The librarians knew me by name. I checked out 7 books every week. I read a book a day. And then on the following Monday, I would go back and do the same thing. When school started up again, I would still practice reading books all the time. So much so that I would take my books with me to school and tuck them behind my textbook. So I was reading during math class. My teacher was teaching 7th grade math, but I was deep in the story of the Sweet Valley High girls. I don't know if you guys remember that series, but I was, for one, addicted. Books took me to places that I never knew existed. With the flip of a page, I could be in the 1970s in Nigeria, in a small village witnessing a ceremony. I could travel across the country, across timelines, and throughout the galaxy. This love of reading and storytelling propelled me to go to college for theater. I thought that I was going to be telling stories with my body, But when I graduated and I was looking for a job, I thought, how would I like to spend my day? And that answer was surrounded by books. It was reading. My first job was at Scholastic Books, and it was there surrounded by what I call my best friends. I call books my best friends. My daughter calls me a nerd for saying that. But I started writing. I started writing stories. And I didn't write for the money. I I wrote because it felt like a purpose. I wrote because it felt like my calling. My purpose is to tell stories, to transport readers and give them the joys and the highs, the lows that I love to feel when I'm curled up with a book. As a historical fiction writer, I feel charged to uncover stories that have been forgotten, hidden, erased, marginalized, or untold. My most recent novel, The House of Eve, was inspired by my grandmother. In the early 1950s, she found herself unmarried and pregnant with my mother, and she was only 15. Now, in the 50s, being pregnant and unmarried was so taboo. There was so much shame and secrecy surrounding the birth of my mother that my mother told me that she didn't know my grandmother was her mother until she was in the 3rd grade. When I was growing up, I could always feel this tension between them, but I could never quite put my finger on it. And this got me to thinking about women and history with our bodies, our shame, secrecy, and our reproductive rights as women. The House of Eve takes place in the 1950s, and I was writing the 5th draft of this novel when Roe v. Wade was overturned. I never set out to write a story that was timely, but somehow the world wrapped itself around my story. I believe that women should have a choice, that students should be able to lose themselves in books and have the opportunity to learn everything about our history and everything about anything. And I hope that you will share my enthusiasm for Rebekah and dig deep into your pockets tonight. This is a fundraiser, and make a donation so that we can help her become the next lieutenant governor. And as she said, bring common sense to Utah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sadiqa, thanks so much. Common sense is a good note to wrap up on here. You've noted that you were inspired to write House of Eve by your grandma's story, and I mean that story of giving birth and people growing up and not knowing that the person they think is their sister is really their mom. I mean, I know a number of people, and probably all of us know someone who has a similar story. I wanted to just note that, you know, this statewide ban of books, 12 of the 13 are women. 12 of the 13 banned books are women, and the top 5 banned books in all of Utah are written by women, including, unfortunately, Ellen and Alana, who are on the call with us tonight. And, you know, I don't think this is a coincidence. Again, the stories of women, um, of Black people, of people of color, of gay people and queer people in American history and in our present day. These are stories. These are stories that are inspiring and that help us to see ourselves reflected and that help us to understand others. So it's so important. So thank you for being here. Thank you for writing, and thank you for writing books that transport us and that we want to curl up with on a Saturday on the couch, with a cup of tea, as well. So I want to I'm going to turn this over to Rebekah. Actually, yeah. But before I do, I just want to say thank you to all of our speakers and to everyone who's turned out tonight to support Rebekah, the freedom to read. You heard from so many amazing speakers tonight. And you'll hear from Rebekah one more time here, who's a dear friend and colleague, a brilliant librarian, a truly special person. And honestly, the way stars are aligning in Utah, she and Brian have a chance to win this thing. So let me turn it over to Rebekah. And then I'm going to have one last comment. So Rebekah, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter. I have prepared remarks. I'm going to get to them, but I just have to say my heart is bursting right now. I mean, in every way, this is like my Super Bowl, to be with the authors that have moved me, that have changed my life. If you got an invitation to speak tonight, it's because you mean something to me personally. And I can't tell you all how great it feels to be with my people, with book people. You know, I'm sure a lot of us had similar experiences as kids where, you know, the only way my parents could punish me was to take my books away. It was like the best way to motivate me to do the things they wanted me to do. You know, I was the 9-year-old kid. They had to take me to the doctor because my neck hurt because all I did was look down and read books. And truly, just being in this room with so many people that have changed my life, I appreciate it. Sadiqa, I read your book, actually. It's funny how books find you right when you need them. I found The House of Eve at a mobile bookseller a couple weeks before our Utah State Supreme Court upheld the injunction so that we could continue to have abortion in Utah up to 18 weeks. If they had not upheld that, we would have a 6-week abortion ban here. And reading your book, it reminded me what a pre-Roe v. Wade world looked like. And it was a reminder of what it could look like again here. So all of you have just transported me in different ways. Thank you so much for just keeping up the fight, this ongoing, quintessentially American fight for the freedom to read and write and think and speak how we choose. So thanks to all of you. And I will also say, Brian, since we have you here, thank you for choosing a librarian to run with you. That is that's not something you see every day. You could have selected someone who had run before, who had served in that capacity before. And the fact that you went out on a limb and chose me, I feel grateful for that every day. So I'm Rebekah Cummings. I'm a librarian, as you've heard. I'm a library advocate. I'm a mother of 3, and I'm running to be Utah's next lieutenant governor alongside Representative Brian King. Now, as you all can probably imagine, I did not pursue librarianship in the hopes that one day it would lead to elected office. I didn't start shelving books 15 years ago at my public library thinking like, this is a clever backdoor into the political world. No. I was and I am simply a person who loves stories and loves people. Like so many of us from a distance for years, I have been feeling this growing frustration over the state of our politics, the divisiveness, the pettiness, the sound bites, the distractions, the inability to find common ground that recognizes we have more in common than not, and that as human beings in this shared society, that our fates are intertwined. I'm banking on the fact that as the 9th and final speaker of the evening, that we're all on the same page, so to speak, on the book ban fight, on the impact of censorship, the power of stories, and the absolute necessity of starting a new chapter in American political life. One that would benefit, I suspect, from having a different kind of politician, preferably one who has spent an inordinate amount of their life immersed in fiction. As I was thinking about why that matters, why it matters to me, I was remembering a lecture that the incredible Neil Gaiman gave over a decade ago on thinking about why our future depends on libraries and on reading. So he said, prose fiction is something you build up from 26 letters and a handful of punctuation marks. And you alone, using your imagination, create a world and people in it and look out through their eyes. You get to feel things, visit places and worlds you would never otherwise know. You learn that everyone else out there is a me as well. And when you return to your own world, you're going to be slightly changed. You're also finding out something as you read, vitally important for making your way in the world. And it's this: the world doesn't have to be like this. Things can be different. Once you visited other worlds, like those who ate fairy fruit, you can never be entirely content with the world that you grew up in. Discontent is a good thing. Discontented people can modify and improve their worlds, leave them better, leave them different. I love Neil Gaiman. So when I think about why I want to be lieutenant governor and why I want more librarians and, more importantly, more readers to run for public office, it's to harness the power of imagination and creativity and empathy to build a better world. And while unfortunately, it may not be one with fairy fruit, Brian and I will work and fight for one with clean air and clean water, with excellent, fully funded public education, with affordable housing and healthcare, and with the freedom to make your own personal choices around everything from your personal family planning to what books you choose to read. Now, this isn't my typical stump speech that I'm giving on the campaign trail day after day between now and November 5th. But tonight, in a space with you, my fellow readers, I just want to encourage you all to keep fighting for the world that we want to build, either by supporting candidates that share our vision, or, who knows, maybe throwing your own hat in the ring. So thank you again to all of our speakers. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you for donating. Asking for money is not my favorite thing. I love being a librarian. You never really have to ask people for money, but I am learning the best way to reach voters across the state is to have those dollars that we can then turn into reaching voters everywhere. Thank you, Brian, again for this opportunity. And this has just really meant the world to me. I think when I look back on this campaign, this will be one of the nights that stand out as my absolute favorite. And so with that, I'm going to turn the time over for the very last minute to one of my best friends and my advocacy partner in crime, Peter Bromberg. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, now I have to follow that. I only have one thing to say, and I'm just going to quote something that Rebekah just said, which is that things can be different. And in fact, you are here tonight. You are helping to make things different. Your energy, your contributions, your words, and yeah, your donations are how we change the world together. That's how we do it, and we are doing it. And I am honored to be Rebekah's friend and colleague. I am also honored to be associated with each and every one of you in this room tonight who is working together to make the world a better place. So thank you. Tanner's dropping the link in one last time if you want to click on it. Go for it. And thank you again for being here. I think we're going to have this a recording of this, and if we're able to share that, we'll get that up on Facebook, etc. So thank you. So good to be here with you this evening.
Whew. Oh, that was so much fun. You guys are awesome.
Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Oh, Peter, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I said we need some outro music like the Carol Burnett,
I was waiting for an encore.
Oh my gosh, that was so fun. I just feel like, oh.
Do we want to cut the recording or keep it
Oh,
going?
is the recording